if you want to become a better photographer, I'm sorry to say that there isn't a lens or a camera body that I can recommend. Everything that I'm going to recommend to you in this video comes from up here and in here. If you follow these steps and implement these ideas, you will become better. I see a lot of photographers sending me a lot of work, and what I see all the time is a lack of direction. I'm going to tell you how to address that in a moment. But what a lack of direction looks like is that they see one thing one day and another thing another day, and they try to copy this and copy that, and it's scattered all over the place, and none of it's actually getting better. It's like sort of bouncing off the walls and going in different directions. The problem they have is they haven't developed an eye for what they like, what suits them. They know that there's a lot of good photography out there, and probably they know that there's a lot of bad photography out there. And anytime they see something that's good, they think, I want to shoot like this and I want to shoot like that. And so this goes on, but you never actually become anything yourself. I always like to think of this as a visual repertoire that we have in our brain. It's like our visual education, learning to see the things that we like. And these things are all around us all the time. But there are certain exercises that we can do in order to improve this. And this is exercises that I have done myself and I still do now from time to time as well. And you can add your own onto this framework as well if you come up with other ideas off the back of what I'm about to tell you. So the first one that I really like, and I think it's really easy to do, but I think 99% of you just won't do it, is that I think you should make a Pinterest account and start creating mood boards. It has to be from the things that are good, the things that you actually like. So it's much more niche down and specific to you. And not only that, I think you should do it outside of your genres as well. This will broaden your horizons. You need to step out of the genre you're in, but also do this for the genre that you're in. You need to go beyond this because this is about a visual repertoire. So I make mood boards on there as well for paintings that I like. You can look into Renaissance painting, Impressionist, Baroque, anything that you want to. But what you're doing by building this up is you're going beyond the stuff that you're sure about. There's a whole range of stuff in your mind right now that you're sure about, but you're going to look beyond that and look at the things and assess the stuff that you're not sure about and start categorizing it and putting it into logical groups so in your mind this stuff starts to stick. There's a quote by Eric Fromm which says that creativity requires the courage to let go of certainties. We have to go beyond the stuff that we already know that we know, the stuff that we're already sure about, because in our minds this is what we always default back to as photographers. We can't grow and conceive of better ideas or different ideas until we make that stuff that we're sure about. So we need to start gathering in these ideas. The other way you can do this is you can start also doing this with a pen and paper with films. Think about films that have visually impacted you, where you've watched it and it's absorbed you in the atmosphere with the cinematography. If you're old enough to remember music videos, when that was a thing, you can do this with music videos as well. Which music videos had a big impact on you? And go back and watch some of these. You don't even have to watch the whole thing. You might pick some movies and watch some of them to reawaken these parts of your mind again. This is how you gain direction, because you know what you like, you know what you want to do. You don't have this scattergun approach anymore where you're copying the last thing that you saw. My second point is about knowing your camera inside out. Now wait for me for a moment, because you might think, oh yeah, that's kind of obvious, but listen to how I mean this. Einstein said the only source of knowledge is experience. When it comes to your camera, you have to know exactly how it's going to behave. I remember bumping into a photographer once when I was doing a landscape shoot with a 5D Mark II, as it happened. And I had a similar experience with the 5D Mark I as well. And what happened with the 5D Mark II is they came up to me and we started talking about cameras, and they looked at mine and asked what it was, and I said it was a 5D Mark II. And they said, oh yeah, but you can't really do landscapes with a 5D Mark II, can you? And I thought to myself in my head, no, you can't do landscapes with a 5D Mark II. I absolutely can. And the reason I can do that is because I know how my camera is going to behave. I know where the highlight limits and the shadow limits are, the dynamic range limits of my camera. I know when the color's going to excel and it's going to take a scene and it's just going to make it absolutely pop. I know the limits of my camera. I know when I need to bracket, and I know how to do it. And I can access all these things quickly and easily. I know when I'm doing a portrait shoot which lenses work well on my specific 5D Mark II because my 51.2 works really well on it, and my 50mm 1.8 STM is a disaster on it. And on my 60, it's the opposite way around. My 50mm 1.8 is excellent on that, and my 50mm 1.2 has just like chicken brain or something. It's all over the place, and it just doesn't want to work. You need to know your camera. So if someone says to me when I'm using a 5D Mark II with a 50mm 1.2, oh, the focus on that camera's no good, you won't be able to do this shoot. I know that I can because I've tested it enough and I'm familiar with my gear. I just know I can. There's no point telling me that my camera can't do it when I know it can because I do it and I'm used to it. This is what you have to get used to, how your specific camera works. Because weirdly, even though they come with the same programming, when you put different lenses on different cameras, they behave differently. I don't know why. They shouldn't, but they do. So you need to know your gear inside out. You need to know the limits of your focus system. How well does it actually work? How well does it work in backlight? Certain cameras can have really good focus systems until there's sunlight coming into the lens almost directly. Sometimes they'll just start to fall apart, and then you'll need to manual focus probably to get that shot. You need to know this stuff, not get back afterwards and say, oh, I should have done this and I should have done that. So you might go through that process, but you need to learn it as you go along and become familiar with your camera gear to this point where I can look at a scene with my eyes and know my 5D Mark II cannot capture this in a single file. I'm going to have to do a 3 bracket exposure. This is knowing your gear inside out and understanding how it works. It's also then being familiar with the controls to the point where you're not fumbling around with it. You can do this stuff at home. You can learn all of this sat on the sofa in your living room, just making different lighting setups, shooting into a lamp, trying the focusing system out and seeing how it works in different ways, shooting different objects, how well the different lenses work. You can do all of this stuff at home. You can do it outdoors as well, but it's amazing how much you can do just sat in your chair and getting familiar with those controls. So when you're in your mind thinking, okay, I want to set up bracketing 2 stops apart, you should be, okay, I know exactly which tab to go to, which page that's on, or which buttons I have to press, so you can just set it up quickly, and you'll complete your vision better by doing this. Aristotle said the aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance. The point of photography when we're talking about art is that we're trying to express something. We're not trying to literally say this thing was here and this is how it looked. We're not trying to demonstrate the sharpness of a lens or the speed of an autofocus system. Look, this bird flying across the sky and how it nailed the focus on the eye. Like, who cares, man? No one cares about any of that stuff. It is not important. I mean, it's great that they can do it, but these aren't the things we care about. If we get the picture of a bird and it's scooping the fish out of the water and it's dramatic and it's action-packed, that's when we feel something. When we get that portrait and the lighting's just right, or that landscape and the composition and lighting are perfect, and it all comes together, that's what we care about, and that's what we need to be aiming for. We need to be careful that we don't spend too much time trying to demonstrate the shallow depth of field that we get at 1.2 and look at how good this thing is that I bought and I paid this much for it. Therefore, I need to demonstrate endlessly how effectively I spent my money and I really didn't waste it. You know, that kind of feeling that people get from their gear all the time. Stop trying to demonstrate with your gear and say, like, you know, how brilliant my camera is, and start trying to actually express something. Look for the lighting and the mood. When something catches your eye, think to yourself, why has that caught my eye? What is it about this thing that's interested me? Can I capture that? Can I represent it in such a way where other people will be able to see that as well? And this means walking around trying to feel and trying to experience the world around you as it actually is, and try to make something of it that becomes your unique, expressive voice. My next point is practice until your camera dies. Malcolm Gladwell said, practice isn't the thing you do once you're good, it's the thing that makes you good. I think one of the traps that we fall into as photographers is thinking that every time we go out with our camera, this is the main event, it's the big performance, we have to produce something amazing, and if we don't get it, we come back and we're disappointed and downbeat about it, and we're kind of not thinking about this as a progression and as a next step. We're taking pictures in order to make mistakes and get better. We're going to try ideas out. We're going to go out and say, I'm going to try this out. I don't know if it's going to work. It's probably going to fail, but it doesn't matter. And when we come back and it hasn't been a success, we need to think about why. What can we still learn from this process? Because that learning process is how we improve. By making mistakes, we learn what doesn't work. And eventually we narrow down all of the stuff that doesn't work until we find out what does work. And through the process of trial and error, if you look, a lot of the scientific discoveries have been done like this. Look at penicillin. I mean, you know the story of penicillin, how that was discovered by accident. This happens because someone was still trying to do something, and then you realize something else that you couldn't conceive of unless you did that thing. And so by doing this, by practicing and taking more pictures and really shooting a lot more than seems necessary, because this is quantity to get to quality. There's a saying that quantity has a quality of its own. And I think that's really true, because by doing more and going through more iterations and variations of what you think might work, you will find out what does and doesn't work and become a better photographer for it. So practice makes perfect. Leave me a comment. What tips do you have for other people that are learning photography? Leave them in the comments section down below so people can read them and see your advice as well. I've got some links in the description. Remember to check those out. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed that video and subscribe if you're new here. And I'll see you guys again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.